We live on an incredibly diverse planet. From the depths of the oceans to the harshest deserts, our planet teems with life. Humans first emerged somewhere in Africa at least 300,000 years ago. If those 300,000 years were compressed into a single day, then my own life represents just the last 15 seconds before midnight. For almost all of our time walking the earth, humans have been just one of millions of species, a tiny population that has lived more or less at one with nature. 3,000 years ago, the human population of the earth was about 50 million people. In the next 1,000 years, it roughly tripled to 170 million in 1 AD. It took another 1,600 years to triple again, and by about 1800, the human population reached 1 billion people. By 1927, we'd reached 2 billion people. And since then, our population has quadrupled, and the conflict between man and nature has emerged and intensified. On land, habitat is being destroyed more rapidly than ever before. As the UN reported last year, over 1 million species are now threatened with extinction. Our oceans have been dramatically overfished, and human waste is swilling through our rivers and accumulating in our food chain. In our atmosphere, carbon dioxide levels are higher than they have been for at least 800,000 years. As a result, from the world's most populous cities to the Australian outback, we're experiencing unprecedented extremes of weather. So too is every species on the planet, from the polar bears in the Arctic to Africa's wildlife. Though many people have become richer in monetary terms, the stresses of our modern lives have taken their toll too, with something like 1 billion people struggling with some form of mental health issue. All this should surely teach us that it is time to rethink how mankind lives in the world, to rethink our relationship with nature, to think about where and how frictions are growing between people and wildlife and how this may have contributed to the COVID-19 pandemic, to think about the importance of wildlife organisations and educators and what we can each do to support them right now, to think about the opportunities there are for businesses and investors who get this right to contribute more to society, to reduce their own risks and build more sustainable businesses. Many of us derive huge joy from the natural environment, whether it's feeling soft grass beneath your feet, or looking out over a beautiful coastline, or the smell of rain in a desert, or the taste of fresh citrus fruit, or the sounds of the jungle. Our natural environment is food for our hearts and minds and souls. 60 years ago, this 14th July, the British primatologist and anthropologist Dame Jane Goodall arrived for the first time in what is now Gombe Stream National Park, Tanzania, and began studying the social and family interactions of wild chimpanzees, the closest species to humans in the animal kingdom. Her work needs no introduction, and we are both thrilled and honoured that she will open this very special episode of ESGX Live, Survival Instinct, Rethinking Our Relationship with Nature, with a special address. This episode is going to focus particularly on Africa. When Jane arrived there in the early 1960s, Africans made up about 10% of the world's population. Today, about 1 in 6 humans live in Africa, and over the next 30 years, its population is expected nearly to double. In other words, fully 60% of the expected increase in human population over the period to 2050 will come in Africa, and Africa will account for almost all the expected population increase in the world between now and 2100. This may sound like a long time in the future, but we should expect our children and grandchildren to live to see that date. So we are delighted that Kaddu Sebunya, CEO of the African Wildlife Federation, will join us in conversation with Cassandra Kelly. We'll also be joined by Shivani, Bhalla, founder of Ewaso Lions, Amy Vitale from National Geographic, Shifra Goldenberg from San Diego Zoo Global, Andrea Athanas from the African Wildlife Foundation, and Shawn Sugarman from Elephant Cooperation.
An organization like AWF that has been in Africa for more than almost 60 years now, we've seen the progress happening on the continent. The question we are trying to answer is, how do we negotiate space for the species in a modernizing Africa?
As always, this episode of ESGX Live is free and open to all and will be as interactive as we and indeed you can make it. So please register at esgx.org to join and meet our live online audience, ask your own questions and contribute to the debate. Thank you in advance for joining us, from me, Nigel Lake in New York, and my co-host Paul Herman in San Francisco, and a sincere thank you to our sponsors Pottinger, Hip Investor, and New Day Impact Investing, and Doug Heskey in particular for helping to bring together this fantastic event. We very much look forward to seeing you on the 14th of July. That's the 15th July in the Asia Pacific.